And welcome to Bronze and Modern Gods. I am John, and this guy over here is my friend Richard. What's going on, Richard?
Not much, John. How you doing?
Doing good. You know, we just got done with the 4th of July, and it was like a total Blade Runner war zone out here in Los Angeles. I don't know what was going on, why this year everybody in particular decided to, have tons of explosions around the neighborhood. Why not?
Jeez, oh man. I'm out here. It was a little bit more muted, but we still had a lot of individuals firing off fireworks.
It was cool, but when it gets to be about 3 a.m, it's like, let's chill, people. Whatever.
Right.
Hey, this week we had such a great response to last week's topic, which is where we just did a little show and tell. We're going to do part 2 this week. But first, I want to welcome all the new subscribers that have joined us since we announced our giveaway on our Instagram account. We're going to announce the winner today, Monday, July 6th, on that Instagram account. So make sure you're following us there as well. That is at Bronze and Modern Gods on Facebook and Instagram. And while you're at it, why don't you give us a like and subscribe here? We'll love you for it. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, I know Richard is like obsessively checking the reviews every week.
Yes, so, more reviews, please.
Help homeboy out here and leave a couple reviews for us. We'll love you for it. So this week, like I said, is show and tell. But let's get started by talking about our nerd shirts this week like we do every week. Richard, why don't you go first? I'll let you show yours off.
Okay. This is another one from superherostuff.com. This is a Marvel villain shirt.
Oh, my God. And you've got some Kirby happening there with Hala and the Red Skull. And Jim Starlin's Thanos there, and it looks like a Bagley Venom, and I can't see the Loki good enough, but I'm going to guess it's a John Buscema.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm just showing off now.
Just a little bit.
And now I've got, for the 4th of July, my John Byrne Captain America shirt.
Oh,
so
can't beat John Byrne.
You can't beat a John Byrne Captain America, on the 4th of July weekend. So there you go. Let's get into it. The hot book of the week, again, like the last couple of weeks, there's been like no contest. We've had Ultimate Fallout 4, Edge of Spider-Verse 2. This week, even though, it's not really in your wheelhouse, and not really mine, but you cannot deny Negan Lives #1 as the hot book of the week.
Yeah, kind of out of nowhere, too. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of warning about this book.
By design, Kirkman just dropped it on people as kind of a thank you to retailers, to help retailers out during these challenging times, as every book does. And, we've got Negan Lives, and it's continuing the Walking Dead story. No spoilers here. I was a big fan of the comic book. The TV show I kind of gave up after season 6. Sorry, everybody. But it does continue where the comic book left off. If you have not read the conclusion of the Walking Dead comic book, I will not spoil it for you. But it's a really cool story. The other story is what happened with retailers. Now, you had the basic red edition that has a red logo, but retailers also got 2 different variants. Each retailer got 2 silver foil variants and just 1 gold variant. For example,
yeah, you were really excited about picking that up.
Well, I was a fan of the book. I've been a fan of the book, I wouldn't say since it started, because I would be lying. I think only 2,800 people or 3,000 people bought that first issue legit off the stands, because it was really, that's why it's so expensive. There was just not ordered. But I obviously became a huge fan, and I was able to score that from my local comic shop. And you know why I got that from my local comic shop, Richard?
Why?
Because I've been supporting them for 20 years. And they went, you know what? John might want that book. We're going to set it aside for them. So I really appreciate them. And big shout out to them, House of Secrets in Burbank, California. Yo. Every shop got 1 gold variant. So let's do some math here. How many comic book shops do you think are left in the United States?
Wow. 2,200 maybe?
So how many gold variants do you think there are?
Maybe 2,200. If that's if they actually ordered.
Well, I think they got them gratis. I think.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So you just got it dropped. That's what I'm saying. It was a total surprise. They just dropped them. and it is really cool. Now, here is what's up with this book. People on eBay were offering pre-orders. Some retailers were offering to sell theirs on eBay. The pre-orders were selling just under $500, like 475, 480, which is amazing for a book that has a $4.99 price point. Since the release date, the prices have kind of settled down a bit to anywhere. The range is wildly fluctuating, anywhere from closed sales on eBay of $175 to about $300. I haven't really seen any post-release sales over $300 yet. My thing is, what's going to happen when all of these 9.8 slabs come back? What are they going to sell for in a 9.8 slab? If there was a Comic-Con this year, what would a signed Kirkman yellow label 9.8 come for? So I'm looking at mine right now, like, do I send it in now? Do I wait until, I don't know, vaccine comes around tomorrow and go to a convention and have Kirkman sign it and then slab it? I don't know.
Well, CGC has been doing an excellent job at pulling in artists for doing signings with them. You mail in your books to CGC, they'll have the artist sign it, then they'll grade it and send it back to you. So you may want to wait to see if CGC does something with Kirkman. I mean, that would be an interesting thing. Yeah. Then you can just send it in to be graded. At the same time, you get it signed. Comes back a yellow label.
That would be amazing. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, I would say it's not too bad right now. You can get one for about $200 if you look and you wait, and you strike. I'm not sure if this is going to be one of those variants that holds the value for a certain amount of time, or if it's going to drop like a stone. This is a tough one. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm myself not a Walking Dead follower. I was interested in the end of the series with the surprise ending. That was riveting. So this wasn't really on my radar, but I could definitely see someone who is a fan of the series really latching onto this if this is as rare as we're talking about.
And it also just has what I call a civilian population appeal. People who aren't hardcore collectors, they're civilians. Everyone knows The Walking Dead. Everyone knows Negan. So it might just be one of those books that just holds its value for a while.
Yeah, even I know Negan, and I don't read the series. So yeah, I think it has some staying power.
Little trivia, you know who Kirkman based Negan's character on looks wise? Supposed to be Henry Rollins.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I could see that.
Why not cast him on the show? That would have been amazing. But
oh man, I love Henry Rollins. That would have made me watch the show.
Right? I mean, come on. So our main topic this week, Show and Tell Part 2. I feel like I've been rambling since this podcast began, Richard. I feel bad. Why don't you go first? Let's talk a little bit about what we picked up the last few weeks, what we're into, what's happening.
Last week I talked as my pick of the week, or undervalued pick of the week. I picked Do More, a series about Dr. Doom and his attack on Wakanda. Well, eating my own dog food, I went to eBay and was looking at the titles that were available. One of my favorite covers is this one here. This is the Woman of Marvel cover for Doom War #1. That's Storm on the cover, 9.8. I believe I paid about $100 for this book.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those things where I think I'm going to sit on it, put it in my box, and if they actually do a Doom War story for either the X-Men or Black Panther or whatever, Doom for if they do a movie about Doom with this, this is going to be one of those things that will increase in value over time.
If nothing else, it'll look good on that wall behind you. That's a great.
Yeah, it's a great variant cover for them. This is I believe this came out recently. I saw this on I'm one of those people who I buy lots of comics. I buy a lot of them not only from eBay but through a number of different retailers. You
don't say.
Yeah. So one of the retailers I had this particular variant for a new title called Dark Knight's Death Metal 1. It is Batman shredding it there with with a guitar. I could not pass this up. I'm not even necessarily interested in the story as I am in the cover. It's an awesome looking cover. There's zombies there that he's playing to. Great cover. So this is I'm thinking about having slabbed just so I can put it up on the wall.
I'm glad you brought that one up because I've been kind of going back over our past episodes, and it seems like we have a real Marvel bias here. DC is coming up with some fire lately with the Batman variants, the death metal variants. I mean, let's not Legion of Superheroes #6 that just kind of came out of nowhere. So let's not sleep on DC.
No, DC's got, like you said, some fire. It depends on the titles. I grew up with Marvel, just like you grew up with Marvel as primary source of material. Although I cut my teeth on Legion of Superheroes back in the late 70s. That's how I got introduced into comics. My dad handed me this dog-eared stack about a foot tall, some of them without covers, of Legion of Superheroes, and I read through those things, and that really just drew me into the world of comic books.
It's so funny you say that because as a kid, I think I just have that bias from being a little kid growing up, and there were tribes. You were Marvel or you were DC. And I remember my Marvel friends and I were like, DC stands for dumb comics.
I was more of a loner in terms of comic book collecting. Another book that I bought. This is an interesting one. You know, Ultimate Fallout 4 is kind of popular right now. The newsstand version is kind of popular in a popular crowd. This happened to come up on eBay. This is Ultimate Fallout #5, and it is a newsstand variant. I don't know if I can get it to the
book with newsstands.
Yeah. So this is a newsstand variant. I don't really think it's worth necessarily a whole lot. I think I paid $15 for it. But it would be nice to have all of the newsstands for if they're available for Ultimate Fallout. So I've got 4, and now I've got 5. So now I need 6 and 1, 2, 3. But no, it was a nice pickup. I liked it, and like I said, for $15, I couldn't say no.
Let me give a shout out to Richard's OCD.
Yeah, yes, it's very, very enforced through all this.
I love it.
Madness.
I love it. How many issues were in Ultimate Fallout? 6?
6 issues and a set of variants plus second prints.
Are you going to try to get the newsstands for all of them?
You know me. I will try.
Yes.
Yes. I've got all of the variants. I've got all of the. I've got everything for the regular direct, and so the only thing I don't have right now are the newsstands. So yeah, I'm sighing here. I will continue to hunt for them. They just show up. You can't really go out and find them. They have to kind of come to you.
I know I'm teasing, but we all have our things, so I am not innocent. When I point the OCD finger at you, there's 4 more pointing back at this guy.
I am unrepentant.
Good.
Okay? You and I were talking earlier this week. We talk daily, and one of the conversations we had was about the 25-year cycle of things and how nostalgia strikes after 25 years. And we talked about some titles specifically. We talked about The Last Hulk. Here's Hulk 474.
You got it.
Yeah, the last Incredible Hulk.
All right. Let me give some people some background here. So Richard and I are on a group text with a bunch of other collectors that we've been friends since high school, college. And we're all just talking, what are you getting? What are you getting? And I'm like, look, my focus now is a really weird focus. I like final issues of titles in the mid 90s when Marvel was in bankruptcy and the print runs were super low and they were rebooting books left and right. And look at this guy. He's got one of them that I was on the search for in a 9.8. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I paid $70 for this book. I don't, who knows? It may be a valuable book in the future. I think it's cool. It's one of those homage covers to Hulk #1.
Such a great cover. Yeah.
Yeah. Great book. This is going to go in my slab box.
What is it? 96? What's the date on it?
The date is March 99.
March 99. That's when Marvel was kind of at its lowest point, right before Quesada took over with Bill Jemas. So print runs were just a fraction of what they were.
And it's marked last issue and cover swipe on the CGC label. It's an
That's
older label. So if something ever happens to it in terms of value, I'd probably send it in to get it reslabbed.
fantastic.
And we were also talking about.
Oh, what else did you steal from me?
Well, we were talking about the final She-Hulk issue. So I grabbed a couple of these. It's kind of hard to see with the glare. This is She-Hulk 38. It's the last of the series from 2006. They're cheap too. I think they're $10 a piece. While we were chatting, I was on eBay. I just went and bought them.
You bastard. That's great, though. But that run is a really good run. Dan Slott before he was Dan Slott. And then Peter David took it over after Dan left the book. And it's a great read. And it was one of those books in the early 2000s that was just hanging on by a thread every month. It was like, is this going to be the last issue? So, again, probably not a lot of those bopping around in 9.8.
Yeah, She-Hulk seems to have a hard time keeping an ongoing series, but
Imagine.
Yeah. And finally, that's not necessarily a new purchase, but it is something that has recently skyrocketed in price. Silk. There's news rumors about a Silk movie coming up, and I've got a Stacey Lee variant cover for Silk #1.
Which Silk #1?
It's from the 2015 series.
2015. Got it.
Yeah. Silk is also someone who's had a hard time keeping his series going. This is a pretty rare cover. I paid $80 for it. It's going now for like $320 because of the news and the rumors. It's been sitting in one of my boxes. I happened to see it on one of the rating sites and saying that it was a valuable variant. I always love Stacey Lee's work. I think she does a really, really great job. Nice, clean lines. So this is definitely something that I am glad to see other people are starting to appreciate, and it's going to go from my slab box to the wall because it's seen a little heat.
That's awesome. What a good buy. Smart.
What about you, John? What do you have on your list?
All right. So just because you swooped in and took the last issues that I was going to buy at my suggestion, I'm going to really just show you up now, buddy. The first book I'm going to show I purchased during EliteComics.com at Con 2 during We Can Be Heroes sale. Great live Instagram sale. First of all, if you're not following We Can Be Heroes on Instagram, please do. Correct that mistake right now. And I actually documented picking it up from their shop. So let's roll the tape, Rusty. Hey, we are at We Can Be Heroes in Chatsworth, California. It's a beautiful day. Drove out here to pick up something I got during the live sales with the Remedy Tour and at Con 2, actually, with Ali and Elite Comics 11. So let's pop inside and meet Julio and the team from We Can Be Heroes.
Got it? Let's socially distance and say hi. So how was the sale? Was it good for you guys?
Yes, it was great. It's always great, and it was fun, and I'm glad that went to a great home.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking the offer. And,
Yeah.
Obviously, if you watched and you've listened, my online handle is BowieFile.
Oh, nice.
And I am a bit of a Bowie
Whoa,
fan.
nice.
So I love the store. I love the whole concept.
Thank you.
And we appreciate it.
Oh, anytime, man. A Bowie fan gets a discount.
Exactly. Thanks.
Well, I'm glad you came to We Can Be Heroes.
Exactly.
It's awesome. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
So here she is in hand at home. My baby, my little baby.
What's the grade on that again?
It's an 8.5.
Oh,
Off-white pages. She's a beauty. I love her. She's amazing. Frankly, it's the 5th Avengers #4 I've ever owned. It is absolutely the highest graded I've ever owned. So I'm super ecstatic. I love it. It's great. Who needs a new kitchen? Who needs the plumbing repaired? I got an Avengers 4 and 0.5. So that's the first one. Very happy with this. And I just want to give a shout out again to Julio. and all the people at We Can Be Heroes. If you haven't checked it out, it's in Chatsworth, California. It's about 45 minutes north of me, in upper Los Angeles County in the Valley. I'm a big fan of that place because We Can Be Heroes is obviously a David Bowie lyric from the song Heroes. You know, my online handle is Weep Bowie File. So there's a little hint there about what I'm into musically. So the whole store is built around David Bowie branding. There are some David Bowie pictures hung up that are really cool. They've got the lightning bolts and all the logo and everything. So big fan of We Can Be Heroes, and just good people, just fun people to hang out with. I wish it was a little closer to me. I would be there every weekend, just sitting around post-COVID. They've got a big screen TV. They're going to show UFC pay-per-view fights, and there's couches. Seriously, you can go hang out and like get a couple drinks, some coffee or whatever, and whatever floats your boat. Watch some pay-per-view fights, read some funny books, and hang out with some great people. So,
Okay. I have a hard time seeing David Bowie being into UFC pay-per-view.
well, you can have different interests. I'm just saying.
Okay.
The other book I got was during AtCon as well, from Bucky's Books. And it was a really beautiful copy of something that I've had a few copies in the past. I've sold them. I'm seeing some heat on it. So I thought, I better get this book again and get a keeper finally in my personal collection. And that is Captain America 100.
Yeah.
Off-white, white pages.
8.0.
Great, just structurally sound book. Nice, grade without having to mortgage the house again. The last book I bought, the Avengers 4, was the kitchen remodel. This was, the bathroom.
Those books are so iconic for Captain America. I'm surprised you just don't have like 3 or 4 of them standing in the corners.
First of all, let me be fair. It's not the cost of a bathroom remodel. It was much more affordable than that. And Bucky's a great guy, and I was really happy to get it. And it just looks really good. The other book I wanted to do a little show and tell was Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos 13 that I bought, and I paid about $100 for it. It's got this little tear along the right-hand side of the cover. But other than that, it was just, had a little bit of a stacking curl and a lot of dents and wrinkles. So I just performed some voodoo magic on it, sprinkled some chicken's blood, got a big witch's cauldron, spun it around a bit, dipped the book in it, called to Baphomet, and look what happened. It just magically got better. So that's the other book I wanted to show off.
Awesome. We have to do a show that talks about the black magic that is pressing and cleaning and taking a book from its raw state when you buy it at a show and getting it ready to be submitted to CBCS or to CGC, whoever. It's a process, and it can increase the value of your book significantly.
It used to be a dirty little secret that nobody talked about. It was like, in the back rooms of dealers' shops, and nobody was very open about it. It was like, hey, it's just a good looking book. What can I say? But I think there's a lot more transparency around it now, which is good. I think it's healthy for the hobby to be transparent. And who knows, we may have a special guest coming up in the next couple of weeks that will talk about this subject in particular with him. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And make sure you are following us on Facebook and Instagram as well.
A little foreshadowing there.
I know you like that. So let's pivot to our artist spotlight of the week. And this is a guy who you don't hear much from him anymore, but he is definitely a Bronze Age mainstay. And I don't know if you noticed, the name of the podcast is Bronze and Modern Gods. So I think it's only fair that we spotlight Barry Windsor-Smith. Are you familiar with a lot of Barry Windsor-Smith's work?
No, not really. We put this list together and I was fascinated. I don't recall seeing him on the lead board of any of the books I've read from the Bronze Age.
Well, what's interesting is he started at Marvel in the late '60s on doing some fill-ins on Daredevil and X-Men, and the appeal for Stan Lee was that he was just such a Jack Kirby clone. The stuff was just so obviously influenced by Jack Kirby, almost swipe-like. But then a couple years later, he got his big break when he was assigned to Conan the Barbarian for that launch. And it was funny he got that book because Martin Goodman, Marvel's publisher at the time, he didn't have faith in the book. He was like, why are we doing this? Why are we spending money on a license? And so they didn't want to spend the money on a big time artist, and they wanted to get someone cheap. They wanted, Roy Thomas wanted either John Buscema or Gil Kane to draw the book. He had to, and I'm using air quotes here, settle on Barry Windsor-Smith, and history was made. He drew 21 of the first 24 issues of Conan. It's a body of work that's been reprinted over and over and over again, even today. But, he was a real staunch advocate for creators' rights. So he left comics in the mid-'70s, just disillusioned with the whole work for hire thing. He did return in the early '80s to draw some iconic issues of the X-Men. I'm surprised you don't have that Storm cover in a 9.8, that really iconic Life Death cover, which is
okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah, I have several copies of that actually.
Okay, you are familiar.
Yeah, Forge is one of my favorite characters, so yeah, absolutely.
And my favorite, which, again, there's something for everyone. There was a Machine Man miniseries in the early '80s by Herb Trimpe, and Barry Windsor-Smith inking Herb Trimpe. What the hell? It's like, I'm going to pour this gold over this, fill in the blank here. But it looked really good. Sorry, Herb. And
so is that the first Machine Man series or the second?
No. You had the first Kirby series that ran 9 issues. Then you had the relaunch with Marv Wolfman, Steve Ditko, later Tom DeFalco, that ran to issue 19. And then Tom DeFalco and Herb Trimpe brought it back for a 4-issue miniseries, which introduced Iron Man 2020. That's where Iron Man 2020 came from, was that Machine Man miniseries. And then he wrote and drew Weapon X for Marvel Comics Presents, that first origin of Wolverine, which was such a huge deal because Logan's origin was shrouded in mystery at that point. And then he helped launch Valiant with Jim Shooter. He was creative director. He drew Archer and Armstrong. He did some stuff in the 90s for Malibu, like Rune. And ever since then, he just does the odd cover here and there and a lot of creator-owned projects. So Barry Windsor-Smith, one of those Bronze Age artists that people love and still collect.
Awesome. I learned something today.
Hey, mission accomplished. So let's talk about our underrated books of the week. I'm going to let you go first, Richard. What you got?
We were talking earlier about Silk and the rumors about her being in the MCU. And I've always been a big fan of the Spider-Verse, the universe that includes Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, and Silk. It's a blank canvas for artists and writers to really create new universes that don't have to kowtow to the sometimes huge and overbearing history that the original characters have to follow. So Silk is a character. She is a Korean American who is bitten by a radioactive spider at the same time that Peter Parker was. This is, of course, in an alternate universe. And she obtains powers and becomes a superhero and is a part of the Spider-Verse and that milieu. One of the books that came out with Silk was a book in 2016 called Spider-Woman Alpha, #1. Spider-Women, because it covered not only Silk, but also Spider-Gwen and Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman. And so you got these 3 potential characters in this book. And it's a story that involves all 3 of them. And it also pulls in from the alternate Earth that Spider-Gwen's from, the Cindy Moon character, who is the real name for Silk. So it's an alternate universe version of Silk. This gets kind of confusing sometimes. As a villain. So you have all these characters in this book. It's a pretty low under the radar book, except for the variant. Now, I like the variant. There's a variant by Stacey Lee. that is a gorgeous cover. Again, I said I really like her work. It's got all three characters on the cover. It is, I don't want to say hot right now, but it's still affordable, and I could see it. So I could see it simmering. So if you're going to get into this book right now, the GPA on this is about $320. I think that's still a good buy.
Okay.
You pick that book up for 300, maybe 280, depending on your negotiating skills and the seller's desire to take your money. You could turn that book into a $400 book once more news is solidified about Silk, or even more. You know how these Spider-Verse movie books can go off the deep end with not so much provocation. So with some
I'm doing a Richard while you're telling me this. I'm trying to get on eBay out from under you.
it happens. I actually have one here. It's a beautiful cover.
Oh, sorry, you already have one.
No, I've got one. Actually, this is when I got back into collecting comics. This was one of the first books that I bought. I've had this book for 3 years or so. It just spoke to me. The cover is gorgeous. Happens to be signed by not only Stacey Lee but also Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez. So triple signed. I paid $400 for this book back when I bought it. I think the premium is because of the signings.
Yeah.
But I like I said, I still think there's room in that book. And once we see more information about Silk movies, and there's talk about more Spider-Verse female rolled based movies. Madam Web was one thing that was talked about. So, I think Marvel has a lot of plans for the Spider-Verse, or Sony, I should say, has a lot of plans for Spider-Verse because it's proven to be a moneymaker. I mean, they made a fortune off of the Spider-Verse movie, and they are already planning on making another fortune on the second one. And if they follow the same formula, I think it's a no-brainer. I think that now's the time to jump into these other titles of Spider-Verse movies, books, not just the Miles Morales or strictly Spider-Gwen. This is Silk, Spider-Gwen, and Jessica Drew as Spider-Woman. So you've got 3 different chances to strike it for this particular title.
Now, granted, I'm not in this as much as I probably should be. So Spider-Verse I've seen the movie, of course. I've bought a few books here and there. But when you have a book called Spider-Women, and it doesn't include the Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman or Mayday Parker Spider-Girl from the alternate future, the MC2. Yeah, what's going on with those characters? They should be involved in this, don't you think?
There are so many spider characters out there.
Maddie Franklin, the other Spider-Woman, the teenage Spider-Woman from the early 2000s.
Yeah. But I think this book has more marketable characters than some of those other alternate Spider females. Mm-hmm. I think obviously Spider-Gwen has proven to be marketable. With Silk, a movie coming out, they feel that she is as well. And as far as Jessica Drew, I'm assuming that they're not going to ignore Spider-Woman as a character, either on TV shows, cartoons, or in the cinema. So we're talking long term here. Right? We're talking, we've got this Into the Spider-Verse or the Spider-Verse 2 movie coming in a year or so. But beyond that, they're not going to stop at that point. They're going to continue to expand to fill the vacuum that I feel is out there for spider character based movies and TV shows.
I just wonder how messy it is with the rights between Sony and Disney, and if that's why Spider-Woman Jessica Drew, who is an Avenger, isn't getting that kind of exposure anymore.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty tangled web.
I see what you did there.
I think that my feeling is that they've reached kind of an agreement, a happy medium where Sony can profit from the characters and Marvel can use the characters as well. And I guess it's one of those things where if Sony is making money, Marvel is making money, and therefore Marvel is supportive of the things that Sony does. It's a very interesting thing because originally when Sony took over these characters, they did a terrible job making movies based on Spider characters or Fantastic Four or, you know, any of the properties that they had from Marvel. They did a terrible job. So I was not very, I didn't go into the Spider-Verse movie with that much hope, but they really knocked it out of the park, I feel, and really caught the thread that that the younger generation really is looking for in terms of pulling these characters into more modern situations and really speaking to a new audience. And I think they're going to continue to do. They see it works, so they're going to continue to do it, and they're going to continue to do it with new characters. And that's why I'm thinking these Spider characters are going to be something that we'll see some more of.
My underrated book this week is pretty simple. I'm going to go back to the Silver Age for this one, and it is Journey into Mystery number 89. It is an early Thor issue. In fact, it is the 6th appearance of Thor. The inside story is nothing special. Believe it or not, Thor fights a mobster. That's the story.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a Lee and Kirby story too. Also, there's a really fun sequence where Thor flies into Dr. Donald Blake's office window and then realizes, oh, I better do something because people just saw Thor fly into this doctor's office window. They may add 2 and 2. And it just so happens to have a cardboard Thor standee in his office, which he wraps his hammer Mjolnir around and then throws it out the window. So everybody thinks Thor just flew out the window. Maybe, and he's 2-dimensional now for some reason. Okay, all right. It's one of those early goofy Marvel Silver Age books. Where
I hope Mjolnir didn't hit somebody on the way down.
Sure did. Plunk. But this book is a classic for one reason and one reason alone, and that is the cover. It is a classic, iconic Jack Kirby cover. It is beautiful. This cover means this book always sells at a premium because people just love this cover and displaying it. Present company not excluded. I have 2 copies of this book, and it is a tough book to find in grade. It's really tough because people get the high grade copy there and their little grubby mitts grab onto it and they don't want to let it go. And, you know, let it go, people. I want one. If you look in the census, you'll see the most graded copies are at 4.5, which is really interesting. A 6.5 with white pages just sold on eBay last month for $600. A 3.0 sold last month for $200. So this book, despite not having any first appearances, no major key moments for an early Thor, it sells for a lot of money. And you look at that cover with that beautiful deep dark blue background, that classic Kirby pose, and you see why. So Journey into Mystery number 89 is my underrated book of the week.
Yeah, you know, some of those Silver Age titles can have huge value just because of that cover. I mean, the story itself, it may be immaterial. I can't imagine things like Silver Surfer number 4 with Thor and Silver Surfer being worth as much if it wasn't for that cover and, you know, the appeal of that. So yeah, covers alone can drive the value of these books.
We see it now with Amazing Spider-Man. You know, if it's got a Venom cover, like an early Venom appearance, that one sells more than all the books around it. Even though McFarlane drew the whole run, people want those covers because they display really nicely. It's a cool thing to look at, and Silver Age is no exception. So, you know, take a look at all those iconic covers. Avengers number 4. You know, not that because I have one now, I'm bragging about it. But
Yes, you are.
I know. It's an iconic cover, though. So that is it for this week. I want to make sure that everybody follows us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods. We have more contests coming up, so you definitely want to follow us if you want to win some slab books. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're giving away. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please click subscribe, click like, leave us a comment. Every little bit helps. I won't tell you to ring the notification bell because it's so annoying. So I don't want you to ring the notification bell unless you're really into it. And if you are listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, please leave us a rate and review on there. Richard will love you for it.
Thank you.
Yes, he's always looking at reviews. In fact, why don't you give Richard a shout out when you write the review? Richard, I know you're reading this.
You can't respond, but I know you're reading.
Exactly. And that's it for this week. I'm John, and there's Richard, and we will see you next time.
Stay safe.